My heart pounded with excitement and nerves as I walked across the campus of Starlight Academy with my suitcases in my hands. This had been my dream for as long as I could remember, to be among the best shifters. The academy was very hard to get into, but somehow I had managed to do it. Today would be the start of a new chapter in my life, and absolutely nothing could ruin it. Move it. 4 eyes. Almost nothing. I released a yelp as someone shoved me down to the ground, and I fell with my suitcases. My glasses slipped from my face and I panicked. No, no, I whispered, closing my eyes as I desperately looked for them. They needed to remain on my eyes at all times. I'd had them since I was 8 years old, and all I knew was that it would be a cold and lonely night if I didn't have them on at all times. The nightmares, the visions. Yes, I breathed. My fingers brushing against the familiar frame, relieved. I quickly put them back on. I caught a glimpse of the back of the guy who had pushed me over as he walked with his group of friends. Asshole, my wolf. Luna and I muttered at the same time. One of the guys, wearing a blue hoodie, looked back with what seemed like a look of sympathy. Our eyes met, and then he made a turn, sprinting in my direction. Flustered, I watched as he grabbed my suitcases from the ground before sticking out his hand to help me. Are you okay? Yes, thanks. I accepted as I got up. Now standing face to face with him, my lips instantly curled at the handsome blonde in front of me. His eyes as brown as honey, and his hair slightly lighter than mine. I am sorry for the prince, he said. He didn't mean it. He's a bit cranky today. I frowned. The prince. The guy eyed me strangely, lied. Never mind. First day? Yes. Do you need help with your suitcases? Yes, sure. He grabbed my 2 suitcases and we began to walk. My short legs struggling to keep up as I was almost half his size. Were you on your way to pick up your keys? Yes? Can you only say yes? Yeah. I mean, no. I shook my head, a bit embarrassed. He chuckled. I'm Ethan, member of the student council. Emily, I responded. Ethan glanced at me, and then his eyes studied me. His look was so intense, I couldn't help but blush. So let me guess. He spoke. 17, small and humble pack, Alpha's daughter, healer's acquaintance. I looked at him, shocked, and let out a surprised laugh. You were almost right, 18. And then there was this other thing. The Alpha was my uncle who had raised me, but it wasn't something I ever felt like discussing. When I was 8, my parents had passed away in an attack, and my uncle had been taking care of me ever since. He was the Alpha of the Scarlet Pack, a small pack from the east. Studying to be the healer's acquaintance. Your parents must be proud of you, Ethan said. Yes, and they, I replied, the words trailing off. Alpha William had tried to treat me like a daughter, but the man was just too awkward to raise one. He had never been around much, and our Luna Rebecca had tried her best, but we just didn't have that mother. Daughter Click, adding salt to the wound, was Ryan, my cousin, who I grew up with. I called him my brother, everyone did. He had hated me all my life, never giving me a reason, and we had never gotten along. He was a sophomore at Starlight Academy and had made it very clear that we were not family within these walls and to stay away from him. His exact words had been, "Do not embarrass me, freak." They're proud, I sighed. As I followed Ethan, I noticed a lot of girls fighting for his attention. Once in a while, he would acknowledge one of them and was met with squeals. With a face like that, it wasn't hard to guess that he was popular. Above all, he seemed to have a good heart as well. He caught me staring, and I lowered my gaze to the ground with a giggle. Here you are, Ethan said. I looked up and realized we had already arrived at the grand hall. Come on, he guided me inside, and it was just as incredible as I remembered from the orientation. A large, open space with high ceilings and luxe appearance. It was quite busy, the area filled with students and suitcases. Wow, I gasped, looking around in awe. Ethan pointed. That's the front desk. You can go there for information and get your keys. Then he stuck out his hand. "It was nice to meet you. Welcome. And I hope you'll have a good year, Emily." I looked at his hand for a moment before accepting it. "Thank you." He winked at me, and I felt a flutter in my chest. I kept holding his hand for a second longer than necessary, and when he stared at our intertwined hands with a soft smile, I released a cough and stepped back. "Thank you," I repeated, not knowing what else to say. "And thank you for coming back to help me." "No problem," Ethan spoke, "just doing my job." "Right, 'cause he was a member of the student council." "Ethan, let's go," a loud voice called out. I looked over Ethan's shoulder to see where the voice was coming from. It was a guy leaning against one of the pillars, surrounded by friends, his back turned to us. It was the same guy who had called me Four Eyes. I recognized his voice immediately. Ethan had referred to him as a prince, and I wondered if it was because he was actual royalty, or because of his entitled behavior. Yet, Ethan didn't hesitate for a second, and immediately walked off to his friend. Next, the woman behind the information desk shouted, snapping me back to reality. An unimpressed look was plastered on her face. "Oh yes, that would be me," I said, sounding awkward even to myself as I struggled to push my suitcases to the desk. "Name, class, and major," she demanded, her tone flat. "Emily Carter, freshman from the healer department," the woman hummed and looked through a stack of papers or files. Meanwhile, my thoughts went to my 3 new roommates, hoping they'd at least be more bearable than that dude who called me Four Eyes. I have to say, I'm very honored to be one of the chosen 200 to learn from the best healers. And my mom was actually an alumna, so I'm really excited too. The woman cut me off, throwing a set of keys at me, and I caught them just in time. "Lunar Hall, second building on your left, second floor, room 102, next. Okay?" I blinked, shocked by her rudeness. Before I could react, someone shoved me aside, and I almost stumbled but could luckily regain my balance just in time. Following the rude woman's directions to the dorm building was thankfully not too much of a hassle. I managed to get to the second floor with a lot of struggle, completely out of breath and probably sweaty. But I was there, and that was all that mattered. The hallway was filled with students, chatting, moving in their belongings, and so on. Overwhelmed by the noise and the people, I looked around, not knowing where to start. "What room are you in?" a voice asked from behind. As I turned my head, a woman gasped loudly in my face. "Abigail." She widened her striking green eyes. I looked at the woman, trying to figure out whether I knew her, but I couldn't recognize her. "Who?" I stuttered. The woman had light gray hair pulled back into a bun, glasses on her nose, and striking green eyes. She stared at me with an intense, almost hopeful expression while I eyed her back strangely, thinking she must have mistaken me for someone else. "I am so sorry," she apologized. "You just look like someone I once knew." I smiled warmly. "It is okay. My name is Margaret, and I'm the RD of this department, and you are," she began, her eyes moving to the name on my key tag. "Emily Carter from room 102, the room just down the hall," she said. "Thank you," I sighed, grateful for the help. Shooting her one last smile, I walked further with my suitcases to go to my room. With each step I took, I grew more anxious about meeting my roommates. What would they be like? Would I like them? Would they like me? Even with the Scarlet Pack, I realized I'd never really had friends. Sure, there were people I was closer to than others. But friends? I reached the door to room 102, and my heart pounded in my chest. Taking a deep breath, I turned the key in the lock, and then I pushed the door open. In the center of the room stood 2 girls who immediately stopped talking and looked at me. One of the girls had dyed light pink hair, the other dark curls. Their clothes were stylish and expensive looking, making me feel insecure and out of place. They probably came from high-status families, bigger packs, unlike me. "Am I interrupting?" I asked. My voice hesitant, the pink-haired girl rushed toward me. "No," she spoke in a hurry. "I'm Isabella. That's Olivia. And are you her Alexander's ex?" I frowned in confusion. "Who?" Our roommate, Sophia, the Lycan Prince's ex, Isabella explained. I heard she has to redo her freshman year and is our roommate. Are you her? I blinked, processing the information. Am I her? No, and I was certainly no ex of a Lycan Prince. I would rather take a swim in my own vomit than get myself involved with such a person's. Stop bothering her, Isabella, the other girl with the braids, Olivia spoke up. She gave me a welcoming smile, her eyes much softer and kinder than Isabella's sharp, piercing gaze. Sophia has red hair, remember? I touched my blonde locks self-consciously, noticing the pink-haired girl's face soften. Then I closed the door behind me. I'm Emily. Nice to meet you. Hi, Emily. Olivia stepped forward, helping me with my suitcases. Sophia is a Lycan of noble blood. Her dad is the beta of the Lycan king of the kingdom of Luporia, and she's our roommate. I'm in here. Sophia there. Isabella in there. And this is your room, she said, pointing and leading the way. So our other roommate was of noble blood, living in the biggest of the 3 Lycan kingdoms. No big deal. Another blow to my confidence, just what I needed. I scanned the room with my eyes as Olivia placed my stuff by the bed. Here you go, and you're welcome, she said. Thanks. The room was mid-sized and still empty besides a double bed, an empty window, and a small walk-in closet. We have to share a public bathroom. It's on the first floor, Olivia explained. Isabella joined us, leaning against the doorframe. Don't you think that's disgusting, though? I mean, I don't want someone to give me, like, green toes? Olivia chuckled. Oh, you mean athlete's foot? I jumped in. Olivia and Isabella exchanged a look, then turned back to me. Tinea pedis, fungal infection, I elaborated, only to get even more confused looks in return. Never mind. Anyway, it's nice to meet you, and I hope we'll get along. I switched up quickly, making a mental note to avoid saying anything too nerdy around anyone. My brother, Ryan, would occasionally tell me to stop being such a smart ass, and that it made me 10 times more unlikable. He was the biggest nerd in existence, so coming from him, it must have meant something. Quick question. Are we all going to the Starlight Festival tonight? Olivia beamed, wiggling her brows playfully. Nope. I turned to unpack my stuff, pretending not to hear. The Starlight Festival was held in the woods just outside the school gates. It always took place on a full moon to welcome new students, and was especially a hot event among unmated werewolves who were desperate to find their mate. The thought of being connected to someone, only to lose them, terrified me. The feeling I felt after losing my parents was one I never wanted to feel ever again. We should go. Everyone is going to be there. And I heard tons of students find their mate there, Isabella said. My stomach twisted with anxiety. I really didn't want to go, but I also didn't want to be that one person who only came to the academy to study, although that was the truth. I wanted to fit in, but also wanted to stay true to myself. But I guess the one thing I truly wanted was to be different from the Emily back home. Have you guys found your mates yet? Isabella asked. No, Emily? Olivia answered, and I looked at her, slowly shaking my head. So, you'll be coming with us then? I'll sit this one out. Besides, I don't even have a dress for that, I said, hoping that would end the conversation. So, I'll let you borrow something. Olivia offered immediately. I knew she didn't have any bad intentions, as she had been kind to me from the start. She just couldn't take a hint. I felt trapped, knowing if I would decline, it would set the tone for my relationship with my roommates for the entire 4 years. Besides, it was just one night. What is the worst that could happen? That's nice of you. Thanks, I said, forcing a smile. Olivia clapped her hands, smiling, then bumped Isabella's shoulder. See, problem solved. Isabella chuckled, folding her arms. It was silent for a moment before Olivia opened another topic. So what do your parents do? I blinked, caught off guard by the question. Just as with Ethan, this was supposed to be the moment where I would usually say my parents were dead. Only I didn't. Again, Olivia answered her own question. My dad is an alpha, Isabella's dad is a beta. Mine is also an alpha. I announced before she could say anything else. Now that she got her answer, I desperately hoped she would shift the topic. Isabella slightly rolled her eyes. Yeah, same old everyone here comes from status. Anyway, where is Sophia? From the moment I had met her, she had almost seemed obsessed with Sophia. All she could talk about was that lichen girl. I'm sure we'll meet her soon. She's probably with Alexander and Ethan, Olivia said. Ethan from the student council? I asked, surprised. Isabella's eyes lit up. Have you met him? He's Sophia's twin brother and Alexander's future beta. I nodded, remembering the handsome guy from earlier. So he was a lichen, a future beta of noble blood, and my roommate's brother. Can you imagine the beta to the future lichen king? Maybe he is my mate? Isabella sang, and the two girls giggled. I'm not counting on it to be the lichen prince, but I'll take the second best. My face paled as I slowly put two and two together. The guy who had called me Four Eyes was indeed royalty. He was that lichen prince they were gushing over. That's why Ethan had called him the prince. I decided right then and there to stay away from him. If he could bully me after bumping into me, I didn't even want to know what kind of damage he could do without facing any consequences. He was a lichen after all, 10 times stronger, 10 times faster. We should go. The RD is expecting us in 10 minutes, Olivia spoke, glancing at her phone. What for? She's giving us a tour, Isabella replied. Then we should probably head out. As we reached the main hall in the healer's building, a large group of freshmen were already waiting and talking among themselves. Margaret, the woman who had introduced herself earlier, stood on a platform. The second I entered the room, her gaze landed on mine and she gave me a friendly nod, which I returned. I was waiting for her to turn away, but she never did. For some reason, Margaret kept staring at me. I squinted my eyes, cracking my brains over the reason. Look, that's Sophia. Isabella nudged my shoulder, and I turned away. Following her eyes, they landed on a gorgeous tan girl with long, straight red hair, standing with a group of girls. Sophia was dressed in a short pink tennis skirt and a pink top. By the looks of it, expensive. Just by one look, it was clear she hadn't been in the dorm to welcome us because she had her own crowd and standards. She had probably already decided her roommates were not good enough for her without getting the chance to get to know any of us. Her energy was completely different from her brother Ethan, who looked so kind and approachable. I'll go and say hi. I'll see you guys later, Isabella said before walking off toward Sophia. Olivia chuckled as we watched her tap Sophia's back, attempting to start a conversation. And then there were two. Don't you want to meet her? I asked, genuinely curious. Olivia pulled a disgusted face, shaking her head. She might be of noble blood, but that doesn't mean she can treat us like trash. If she really wanted to meet us, she would have been at the dorms. I smiled, agreeing with Olivia. Yeah, you're right. It's nice to meet someone who sees things the same way. Attention, Margaret called out. The voices in the hall slowly faded as everyone turned to look at her. Welcome, everyone, to Starlight Academy. I'm Margaret, your resident director, and one of the Grand Masters in healing. It's my pleasure to welcome you to what I hope will be the best 4 years in your life. Everyone around me clapped, so I awkwardly joined in. Starlight Academy is a place where you will learn, grow, and build life-long friendships. And I know many of you are nervous, Margaret continued. Making eye contact with me, I looked away. But I want you to know my office is always open, no matter what. Olivia whispered. They always say that, but never keep their word. I giggled, once again agreeing with her. It was always like that. They had everyone's backs until someone's family couldn't pay the fee anymore. Now, if you'll all follow me, Margaret instructed. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Isabella walking with Sophia. It looked like Sophia had taken her under her wing, which made sense given Isabella's excitement about meeting her. Margaret led us on a full campus tour, explaining that this week would be about exploring and learning the basic rules. We weren't allowed to spend the night in the male dorms. There was a strong curfew, meaning no leaving the dorms after 10. No unauthorized shifting or any other kind of use of power, and especially no fighting unless it was on the training grounds with a teacher present. 3 strikes, and you're out. I might as well have applied for prison, Olivia muttered, making me laugh as we walked with a few more freshmen we had made along the way. The tour ended in the academic hall. Look around some more, enjoy your week. And I will leave you girls to it, Margaret said. Everyone thanked her in unison, but once again her eyes were on me. I still wondered what her deal was, why she seemed to be paying me so much attention. After she was out of sight, I tried to join the conversation with the girls, but they were already in it too deep. He literally just walked past us, apparently. He's a sophomore CSL major, one of the girls said excitedly. What? I asked, feeling lost. Combat strategy and leadership. They're talking about the Lichen Prince again, Olivia explained. The topic wasn't all that interesting to me. All everyone seemed to be talking about was that damn Lichen Prince. The conversation continued without me, and it bored me so much, I felt a sudden urge to pee. Does anyone know where the restroom is? I asked. Olivia pointed in a direction. I think it's that way. Do you want me to go with you? No, I'll manage, thanks. Following Olivia's instructions, I eventually stood in front of 2 closed doors with unclear symbols. Sure, why not? I mumbled, trying to make a decision. One looked vaguely like a dress, so I guessed that one was for women. As I entered the restroom, I saw it was empty and headed for one of the stalls. After finishing my business, I went to the sink, rubbing the soap between my palms before washing it off. But as I turned off the tap, I heard a sound from around the corner. My heart skipped a beat. How had I missed a whole part of the restroom, curious, but more so fearful because I knew I had screwed up. I peeked around the corner, seeing exactly what I had been expecting to see. To my horror, I saw urinals, and a guy with his back turned against me, zipping up his jeans. I swallowed my breath, panicking, and I knew I had to leave quietly before he noticed me. Carefully, I took a step back, only for my foot to hit the bin, followed by the sound of a loud clatter. Shit. The guy turned around swiftly, his expression tense, and his jaw clenched. My stomach dropped, even though this was the first time I had seen his face. I recognized his build immediately. It was the Lichen Prince, Alexander, and he was walking toward me with a gaze so cold it could kill. Everything seemed to move in slow motion as he stepped closer and closer, until he stood in front of me, leaving no more than a few inches between us. Nervously, I bit my bottom lip, dreading whatever would come out of this. I was so embarrassed, the sound of my own heartbeat echoed in my eardrums. The prince's eyes bore into mine, and he looked pissed. I was frozen, my mind blank, unsure of what to do or say next. His face shifted from an angry gaze to a smirk, then back to furious as he stood in front of me, the Lichen Prince. I felt as if I couldn't breathe, unsure if it was from the complete embarrassment of walking into the male restroom or from his intimidating presence as he hovered over me. He was tall with jet black hair that framed his chiseled face perfectly. His eyes were almost as dark as his hair, beautiful and terrifying. My eyes wandered to his lips, which were tightly pressed together, almost as if he were holding back a comment or perhaps a laugh. "Lost 4 eyes?" he said, calling me by that same nickname he had called me before. His voice was low and deep. I was still frozen, staring up at him as no words were able to leave my mouth. This was humiliating, I stammered. I think I made a mistake," Alexander scoffed. "You think, or you know? Because it seems pretty obvious to me." That's it. I was not going to argue with this guy. I rolled my eyes, trying to leave, but he blocked my path by slamming his hand to the wall behind me. I was trapped between his body, and he had no intention of letting me go. "This is clearly the men's room," he said, tilting his head. "Or did you just want an excuse to see me? Are you also one of my stalkers?" Stalkers? I knew my face was turning red. "No, of course not. I didn't realize." "Sure you didn't." He cut me off. For what do you even need those glasses if they're not doing anything about that bad sight of yours? I clenched my fists, my embarrassment turning into frustration. The glasses were a sensitive topic to me, especially since I wasn't wearing them for my eyesight. Now he had pushed it. I said it was a mistake. Now move. I tried to go past him for a second time, but he pushed me back, stopping me in the process as his jaw slightly twitched with anger. 4 eyes. I have a name. Then what is it? He demanded. Emily, I replied, loud and clear. 4 eyes. A smirk appeared as he refused to roll my name off his tongue. I'm sure you know who I am, and where I come from no one raises their voice at me. Funny. Where I am from, no one raises their voice at me either. I shot back. Hearing those words from a lichen prince's mouth were supposed to scare me, and they did. But I wasn't going to let him win this time. Back home, no one dared to disrespect me because of my uncle. Even though they thought I was a bit odd, I had given the prince a pass when he pushed me to the ground. But that was as far as I would go. Alexander looked surprised and speechless, as if he hadn't expected me to talk back. Now, if you'll excuse me, I said, brushing past him and succeeding this time. Then I quickly left the restroom without so much as a glance back. As I hurried through the halls, I could finally release a breath, processing what had just happened. The Lichen Prince. Alexander tried bullying me again, but I had stood my ground. I had managed to do it this time, but I knew all too well that he wasn't one to play around with, so I would just let it be that time. It would probably be better for everyone's sake to avoid him for real. I rejoined the group, and Olivia noticed my flustered state. Are you? She asked, concerned. I nodded. I'm fine. Anything happen while I was away? Olivia locked our arms together. Number, I was just talking about how we should get ready for the party, I furrowed. But the party is hours away? Exactly. And we need to look perfect, just in case we do find our mates. Olivia's eyes sparkled with excitement. Olivia wasn't joking. As soon as we got back to the dorm, she had pulled out a dress for me to wear. I stood in front of the large mirror in her room as she held the dress in front of me. It was a short, strapless royal blue dress, stopping just beneath my thigh. Imagining a scenario where I would suddenly have to bend over, I shook my head. Number, no. Olivia gasped. You mean, yes. Number, yes. Olivia. I gave her a look, playfully singing her name. Emily, she sang back, making me laugh in response. I felt so comfortable around her. It was strange to imagine we had only met a few hours ago. You got nice boobs, Olivia noted with a wide smile. Show them off, because I know I will. It had only taken me 10 minutes to find out. There was no point in arguing with Olivia. She was the type of person to keep pushing until she would get her way. All right, I'll wear it, I said. Finally giving in, Olivia squealed before pulling me into a back hug, her head resting on my shoulder. She held the dress in front of my body. And you'll look great in it. Just at that moment, we heard the front door open. We shared a quick look, then walked to the front to see who it was. It was the girl with the pink hair, Isabella. I looked behind her, wondering if perhaps she had come with Sophia, but she closed the door behind her. Hey guys, she mumbled, walking straight to her room. Once again, Olivia and I exchanged a confused glance. Isabella, Olivia called after her. We were just getting ready for the party. Do you want to get ready with us in my room? No, Isabella walked out again, carrying a few dresses and shoes, along with what seemed to be a vanity case. I'm just here to grab my stuff. I'm going with Sophia and some of the sophomore girls. But you guys have fun. Then I guess we'll see you at the pay. Olivia's words were cut off by the sound of our door, and Isabella was gone. Okay, Olivia pulled a weird face, and we burst out laughing. Now what the hell was that? I don't know, I cackled. She slung her arm over my shoulder, leaning into me. Thank God, you're my roommate, she said, grinning. Probably referring to Isabella's odd behavior. I wasn't one to judge people, but it would have been a lie to deny that Isabella left a bad taste in my mouth from the moment I'd met her. Another person to stay away from. Olivia and I spent the next couple of hours doing our hair and makeup. When Olivia finished curling my hair, she turned her attention to my glasses. "Okay, let's take these off," she said, reaching for them. "You can't wear those with those cute heels." I quickly pulled back. "Oh no, not the glasses, you can't." Olivia looked at me puzzled. "Why not? You've got beautiful eyes, Emily. You shouldn't be hiding them behind these." I sighed, realizing I had to explain at least part of the reason, otherwise she would never get off my back. After a while, the "I can't wear contacts" excuse wasn't cutting it anymore. "They're special to me," I put on my saddest voice. "My mom gave them to me before she passed away. I promised her I would always wear them." Olivia opened her mouth to speak, then released a small gasp. "I'm so sorry," she apologized. "I had no idea." "It's okay, don't worry about it," I chuckled, looking into the mirror. It wasn't all a lie. The glasses were special to me and given to me by Mom. That part was true. Many years ago, I used to have strange nightmares, sometimes even prophecies. I heard voices in my sleep, sensed people that weren't there, would wake up screaming. It wasn't unusual for healers to have some kind of abilities, but mine were too dark, too terrifying. Only my parents, Uncle and Ryan, knew about it, and I had promised never to reveal it to anyone. Mom had always feared someone exploiting my powers for their own gain, and even when she had passed, I still honored her wishes. I wasn't that big on shifting either, mainly because that was also something that had to be done without my glasses. That's why I liked being a healer, and was proud of it. It was a way for me to avoid shifting. It kept me grounded. I got to keep my glasses on. "You know what? The glasses aren't even that bad." Olivia looked at me through the mirror. She squinted her eyes as if she was trying to read my thoughts. I hated that, people staring at me, like they could see more than I wanted to share. "I saw the lichen prints in the restroom," I said, the first bit of nonsense that occurred to me. "I accidentally entered the boys' room. Very stupid." Olivia's eyes widened. "You saw Alexander. What is he, Lee?" "Rude," I stated. "He called me a stalker, and 4 eyes." Olivia looked down, trying to hold back her laughter. "Not funny, by the way," I added. "The nickname was stupid, corny, outdated, and he could have done a lot better." "You're right. Nothing to laugh about." Olivia smiled, pursing her lips. "Although you should be flattered." "Why?" "I heard he ignores everyone on purpose, because he doesn't think they're worth his time," she explained. "But he saw you, paid attention to you. So maybe—" "No," I pulled a disgusted face. "I'd rather spit on the moon goddess than getting involved with him." "Oh wow," Olivia blinked. "Spitting on the moon goddess is like spitting on your mother. Is it that serious?" "It is that serious." I nodded. "He's a bully, a lichen, a prince. I hate him. And I also don't think Sophia would appreciate me fighting for her ex-boyfriend's attention." "Probably," Olivia hummed. "I heard they got along past, something about their dads wanting them together to strengthen the royal bloodline, and Alexander breaking her heart before it could get too serious because he has attachment issues." "He's got issues." "All right," I agreed, thinking about the cold but annoyingly handsome lichen prince who had humiliated me twice. "Anyway," Olivia chuckled, looking at her phone, "we should head to the party." "We should." Catch. Olivia tossed a pack of gum my way. I blinked, startled, and sniffed my own breath, suddenly self-conscious. "Is there something wrong with my breath?" "Of course not, silly," Olivia grinned. "You'll need it just in case you find your mate tonight." I laughed, shaking my head. "Oh no, I'm not counting on any of that." Just the thought of finding my mate, all while trying to finish school, sounded like a drag. "Yeah, but you never know," she replied, winking. "No, I know. No, you don't." Our banter continued all the way down the hall until Olivia had to go to the restroom. With nothing better to do, I wandered through the empty halls. My eyes were instantly drawn to the portraits of the healing majors from over the years. As I looked at them, I thought of Mom, a well-respected alumna. Would her picture also be there, determined? I went on a mission to find her year. I scanned the faces in each frame, and after a few minutes of searching, I finally found her year. My heart raced as I looked at every row, trying to spot her among the sea of faces. A smile appeared on my lips as my eyes landed on Mom. There was something so familiar about the glow on her face. She had her arms wrapped around another woman's waist. The two looked close to the point they were even wearing matching clothes. I took a better look, but failed to recognize the girl standing next to her. I glanced at the names below the photo and read my mom's name, Sarah. The girl hugging her was called Abigail. Abigail, that was the same name Margaret had called me. I leaned in closer, trying to get a better look at her face, but it was turned just enough that I couldn't make out her features. If only done. Out of nowhere, Olivia appeared and slammed her arm over my shoulder. "What are we looking at?" I shook my head, brushing it off. "Nothing special, just old pictures." We began walking. "Just imagine," Olivia beamed, "in 4 years. Our pictures will be there." We left the building and made our way to the woods. After a while of walking, we could already hear the sound of music and chatters. "Everyone is here," Olivia said in awe as we approached. In the center of the woods, there was an open space where students were talking, laughing, dancing. The trees were decorated with twinkling lights, the only source of light. Red cups were scattered on the grass, and the scent of a substance that definitely wasn't allowed lingered in the air. All of it made me feel uncomfortable. We had just arrived, but I already wanted to leave. There were so many people, drunk people. It just wasn't my scene. Olivia nudged me playfully. "Remember, keep an open mind. You never know what might happen tonight." I scoffed. "I wouldn't get your hopes up if I were you. Don't just stand here. Let's go." Olivia grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the dance floor, where most of the students were. I tugged at the hem of my dress, nearly falling over. "Are you sure I look okay?" I spoke over the loud music. Olivia grabbed 2 drinks from a passing tray, handing me one. "Of course you do. You look hot," she shouted. I let out a sigh, disagreeing as my eyes scanned the crowd. I didn't feel hot. I felt stupid and out of place. All these girls looked good because they had the confidence to go with it. Olivia wrapped her arms around my neck and swayed from side to side, forcing me to move with her. "There you go," she said. And I gave her a small smirk in return. A loud, exaggerated laugh pierced through the music. I looked to the side to see where it was coming from. And it was no one other than our roommate, who was more so like a ghost. Sophia, she was standing with Alexander, Ethan, and Isabella. A weird feeling went through my body as my gaze fell on the lichen prints. Sophia said something, placing her hand on Alexander's leather jacket, but he had no reaction. His face was just as stony as it had been in the restroom. When I first met him, his shoulder-length hair had been loose, but tonight it was pulled back into a bun-cold, yet undeniably handsome. That would be a good way to describe him. Sophia looked gorgeous. She wore a pink mini dress that hugged her body, and her red hair fell beautifully over her shoulders. They matched perfectly and were both attractive. One could easily understand why they used to date. Why was I even observing these people? I tried to look away but failed miserably. My eyes remained glued to them. "If you're not interested, stop staring at him," Olivia sang, nudging me playfully. I dragged my eyes away, annoyed at myself for exposing myself. I truly wasn't interested, and I truly didn't care. I wasn't staring. Olivia shot me a sarcastic look. "Don't try to understand. I've heard this is what they do. They break up and get back together like every other week." "Good for them," I said with a shrug. "But I barely know the guy, and he's not exactly the nicest, so I really do not care." Olivia raised her eyebrows, unconvinced. "You know what? I can name 10 guys hotter than him," she spoke as she glanced around the crowd. "Take him, for example." Her finger pointed to a guy walking past. I followed her gaze and nearly choked when I saw who she was pointing at. "My brother Ryan." I gagged to myself, trying to shake the image from my head. "You didn't even see his face," I argued. "You only saw the back." "Yes," and Olivia blinked. "He has broad shoulders, dark hair, a good fashion sense. And that's all I need to know. I laughed at her conclusion and focused on the music. After several more drinks, I finally let loose and was able to let go of everything. My worries, insecurities, the pressure of trying to fit in. For the first time in years, I actually felt like I was having fun. All was good until the music suddenly cut off. It was replaced by a loud, uncomfortable sound, followed by several taps coming from a microphone. The crowd turned their attention to the source, and it was Ethan, standing on a small platform. Test, test. Can everyone hear me? People cheered in response. It's going to happen, Olivia squealed. Greet. Welcome everyone to the annual Starlight Festival. Ethan pumped up the crowd, getting the same energy in return. After the cheer died down, he continued speaking. I could give you all a long, boring welcome speech, he grinned. But we all know what you really came for. The students let out a gasp as Ethan pulled out something which appeared to be a small potion bottle from his pocket. He raised it high in the air, showing off the silver glow swirling inside the bottle. Emily, that's the moon goddess breath, Olivia whispered. I frowned. The moon goddess. What? As you all know, once I open this potion, it might just be that you find your mate at this very moment. The students reacted. Everyone was pushing each other to get closer. But I was in no hurry, by chance. I caught Sophia wrapping her arm around Alexander, leaning into him with a big smile. He rolled his eyes and pushed her away. Whatever happens next, Ethan continued, and I turned my head again. Please take it to the dorms. Remember, nobody wants to see your business. There are condoms in every building. Let's not make any fur babies tonight. The crowd laughed while my stomach twisted with unease. This whole thing was becoming too much. Mates, magic potions, fur babies. Could we not just skip this part and focus on the academy? 5. Ethan started counting down, the crowd joining in. 4, 3, 2, 1. He opened the bottle, and seconds later a large cloud of smoke traveled to the dance floor. The music kicked back in, but the fog grew thicker, even reaching my glasses. I could barely see anything, and my attempt to wipe them clean only made it worse. Olivia, no answer. Olivia, I called out again, but she was gone. Due to the heavy fog, I had lost her in the crowd. To make matters worse, my body suddenly felt like it was on fire. Heat spread from my cheeks to my core, even down to my limbs. Luna growled inside my head, her voice louder than usual. Something was happening. Was it my glasses? I needed to get out of here. I panicked as I pushed through the crowd, still unable to see anything. Sorry, I muttered as I bumped into people. Only I couldn't see who I was apologizing to. Once I finally made it off the dance floor, I grabbed a napkin and wiped my glasses, careful not to take them off. The glasses weren't the issue, they couldn't be. My heart was still racing, body fuming, and the tip of my fingers tingling. Follow, Luna growled, growing urgent. She had never been like this. Follow what? I whispered, confused. I spotted a guy disappearing into the woods, moving away from the festival, and without thinking, I followed. My body moved on its own. I had no idea what was happening to me, but honestly, I wasn't even sure if it was really me anymore. I was losing control, and that was the one thing I feared most. As I stumbled deeper into the woods, the music faded behind me. The guy in front of me moved faster. He knew I was following him. I wanted to stop, but I couldn't. Luna wouldn't let me. I began to realize what was happening to me. The potion, the smoke. Luna, that guy must be my after a while. The guy finally stopped. His back was still turned to me. I froze, catching my breath before a loud ringing sound filled my ears. At that moment, all I could see was him, standing there in the dark woods. Slowly, the figure turned. My breath hitched. It was Alexander. His cold eyes stared right at me. His gaze was dark, dangerous, and my stomach twisted. He took a step forward toward me, his eyes never leaving mine. He didn't get too close. He kept just enough distance between us, as if he was repulsed by the sight of me. "Why are you following me?" he growled in fury. I didn't move a muscle. My heart slammed against my ribs as I took in his anger. He knew why. He must have felt it too, that strange feeling that had dragged me into the woods. I don't know," I whispered, not getting the answer he suspected. Alexander roared in frustration. Before I could ever think clearly, he moved at an incredible speed and shoved me hard against a tree. I released a soft yelp, my back slightly burning, but all I could focus on were those dark eyes. They were angry, confused, hungry. His face was inches away, so close I could feel his breath against my skin, and there it was again, that burning sensation spreading through every part of my body. And this time it was 10 times more intense. I tried to fight it, I really did. But before I could stop myself, the horrible words I had hoped not to speak for at least a few more years slipped past my lips. "Mate." The moment the word left my mouth, Alexander released a sharp. His eyes were still full of anger, but his hand moved to my face. He traced 2 fingers from my cheek to my lips, and when I parted them, he moved them to my chin. It was almost like a warning. I lead, you follow. How could someone I hated so much stir something so powerful inside me? To my surprise, Alexander leaned closer until his lips were inches from mine. His gaze turned a bit softer, more confused, and for a moment, I really thought he'd kiss me. The thought was supposed to terrify me. I was supposed to pull away, but I didn't. I couldn't, and neither could he. I could only hear the sound of our heavy breaths filling the woods. Time stood still, and then his lips crashed into mine. The kiss was rough, almost desperate, like he was trying to prove that this would be the first and the last time. His hands gripped my waist, pulling me closer, and I melted into him. I gasped into his mouth as his hands began to roam my body, and his tongue found its way between my lips. The kiss deepened, and without thinking, I grabbed the collar of his leather jacket. I grabbed it tightly, holding on as if I never intended to let go. And strangely enough, I didn't want to. Alexander released a low growl, pushing me harder against the tree. The way his lips felt on mine made everything else disappear. I lost myself in him. Luna was calm again. But then, Alexander pulled away. He kept his eyes closed, his forehead resting against mine as we both gasped for air. That was my first kiss. What the hell just happened? As if snapped back into reality, his cold eyes opened again. He gripped my chin, forcing my gaze to meet his. I wanted to speak, to ask what this meant, what his intentions were. But before I could say anything, Alexander's lips twitched in anger. "You," he spat out in disgust, "are a pathetic, low-rank puppy." My heart shattered into pieces. The fire I had felt during our kiss had been fully extinguished. My mind cleared again, our first meeting. When he had knocked me over, had already set the tone for our relationship, and nothing could change that. He hated me, and I hated him. "You are no mate of mine." Alexander tightened his grip on my chin, making me wince. "Never." Then he walked away. "Alex," Sophia moaned into my ears as she reached her peak. Her body trembled beneath me. Nails dug into my back, hard enough to leave marks. I waited for a while before I rolled off her with a disappointed sigh. It didn't feel satisfying, not in the way it should have, and it was all because of her. Sophia had the audacity to place her hand on my chest and started tracing circles with her fingers. "That was amazing," she whispered. "For you," she leaned closer to kiss my cheek, but I could avoid it just in time. I rolled my eyes, pushing her away as I got out of bed. Our business was done here, and so was any desire to stay here with her. "Why can't you just stay with me for once?" Sophia asked, her voice a little frustrated. "Like you used to," I ignored her, scanning my messy room. Only it wasn't my mess, it was Sophia's. Her clothes, her makeup were all scattered around the room, and it made me think that perhaps I had made her too comfortable. We weren't together anymore. Luckily, I had a private room. one of the privileges that came with being heir to the Lycan throne. In my freshman year, I did share a room with Ethan, who was Sophia's brother, and my future beta, who would follow into his dad's footsteps. But after a few months of complaining, I had managed to get us separate spaces. Part of me just needed to breathe without him around all the time, and that small part of me wanted to respect my best friend by not fucking his twin within a 10-mile radius. Now, it had backfired. "Make sure you take your shit with you this time?" "All of it," I said coldly, heading for the bathroom before I could hear her response. I jumped into the hot shower, trying to think of that one thing I had been trying to ignore, but couldn't. I clenched my fist as I rested my head against the shower wall, my mind traveling back to the Starlight Festival. 4 Eyes. That's what I called her. I didn't know her name and didn't care for it. All I knew was that she was my mate, and not the strong Lycan mate I wanted. No, a puppy. That damn girl with those sharp blue eyes hiding behind those glasses was my mate. The beast tried to show it to me when she had spied on me in the restroom, and I nearly prayed to the moon goddess for it not to be true. The first thing I wanted to do when Ethan opened that bottle was choke him to death for putting me in this position. I had shoved her against that tree and had been so close to ripping her apart for even speaking the word mate. But then my body betrayed me. I had to get a taste of those plump lips, and once I did, I was unable to stop myself. I hated myself for it. She was a stalker, a creep. Why her? I was heir to the throne, future king of the biggest Lycan kingdom, Luporia. It didn't make sense. Nothing about this bond made sense. Yet it did. Perhaps this was my punishment from the moon goddess for that horrible thing I did many years ago. That thing the king kept reminding me of by showing me how little he cared for me. With a throbbing head, I got out of the shower. A towel was wrapped around my waist as I walked back into the room, and unfortunately, Sophia was still lying in bed, her eyes following me like she hadn't gotten the message. "You're still here?" "Well, yes," she replied. "Why wouldn't I be?" I ran a hand through my wet hair, trying to keep my temper in check. "Sophia, you know the deal. What we had is over, I told you. If it isn't for your body, I don't want to see you. Now leave." Sophia's face twisted in anger. I didn't pity her because we were supposed to have this mutual understanding, one we had both agreed to. After an on and off relationship that had been going on for years, we had broken up a few months ago, and this time it was for good, Dad. The Lycan King had pushed us to be together. He insisted that his beta's daughter and his heir to the throne were a perfect match, one that didn't need the blessing of the moon goddess. No matter what the future held, we were destined to be together in his eyes. I never liked disobeying him, so I endured, but at some point I just couldn't stand it anymore. I had never been loyal to her, never loved her, and I wasn't capable of loving anyone. After what I had done to my brother, my very own flesh and blood, it didn't take long to reach that conclusion. "Leave," I pointed to the door. "But Alexander," she whined. "My roommates are so lame, except for Isabella, I guess. She's kind of all right, but a total try-hard. You should see the others. You'd laugh at them." I stopped listening and put on my clothes. The annoying tone of her voice was nothing more than an irrelevant background noise. She could complain all she wanted, but it'd end all the same, with her leaving my room. Once I finished dressing, I yanked the covers off the bed, exposing her naked body. "Come on," I encouraged, grabbing all her clothes from yesterday. Then I tossed it at her. "Didn't I make myself clear? Get dressed, take your shit, and leave." Sophia grunted as she stood up and threw the dress over her head. "Who is the slut you're with now?" she began accusing me. "Is that why you don't want me around anymore?" "Slut." My mind went blank. "I'll find her," Sophia shouted. "I'll find her, and then I'll K." Refusing to let her finish that sentence. I had already pinned her against the wall. The beast took over as my hand gripped her throat, hard enough to send a clear message. My claws appeared, teeth sharpened as the beast tried to take over, and a low growl came from deep in my chest. "Careful, Sophia," I warned, my claws slightly grazing her skin. Her eyes widened in shock, her expression filled with fear. In all the years we'd known each other, I had never lashed out at her like that. For the first time, she didn't talk back, and I was sure it was because she had no idea what had taken over me. I didn't even know what was happening to me. Startled, I managed to control the beast and stepped back. I felt disgusted, embarrassed at how easily I had lost control. This had never happened. Just leave, I muttered, turning my back on her so I wouldn't have to see her fearful eyes. There was a moment of silence. Then she started gathering her belongings. "You could have killed me, you sick fuck," she muttered under her breath, the words cutting deep. The door slammed shut behind her, and I finally let out the long, frustrated breath I'd been holding back. I glanced down at my hand, flexing my fingers that were claws just seconds ago. Then I balled it into a fist. I didn't want to hurt Sophia. When she spoke about that slut, the beast had instantly thought of Four Eyes and felt the need to protect her. I was becoming possessive, losing control, and it was not my choice. It was driving me insane. Frustrated, I paced back and forth. How could I, the heir to the Lycan throne, get so possessive over that thing? The king had drilled it into me time and time again. If the moon goddess curses you with an unworthy mate, it means she hasn't forgiven you for your sins, for what you've done to your brother. For years I was forced to listen to his words, forced to think about what I had to do to secure my place as heir. And now I had received the ultimate punishment. The mate bond. I let out a loud growl, slamming everything from my desk in one go. She was driving me insane, and I couldn't take it anymore, pissed. I rushed to my walk-in closet. In a rage of anger, I threw all my jackets onto the floor and searched for the one I knew would calm me down. My eyes landed on the leather jacket I had worn that night. I took the jacket and then brought it to my face, inhaling her sweet scent that still lingered. She smelled like candy, vanilla, and sugar. "Mate," the beast growled from deep within. "Shut up, mate." "No," I barked, clutching the jacket in my hand. So all that beast could think about was Four Eyes. Okay, no problem. All I had to do was reject her, something I already should have done in the woods, and then everything would go back to normal. Determined, I stormed out of the room. This pull, this bond, was suffocating me, and I needed something, anything, to make it stop. As soon as I stepped into the hall, Ethan slammed his arm over my shoulder. "Hey, Alex." "Not now, Ethan," I snapped, pushing him off and leaving him behind. I couldn't deal with anyone right now. The only thing on my mind was Four Eyes and rejecting her as my mate. I sniffed the jacket in my hand one more time, then followed the clear trail all the way to the building of the Lunar Hall building. It didn't take long before I found the dorm where the smell was coming from. I waited around the corner, so that's where she stayed. Four Eyes. I took a step, but immediately retreated when I saw Sophia step out. Shit, I cursed under my breath. Of all the people to walk out of that room, it had to be her. That could only mean one thing. Both of my stalkers were roommates. The moon goddess truly had it out for me. Sophia walked in a different direction. And just as I was about to make another attempt, the door opened again. This time, it was her, Four Eyes. She stepped out wearing tight jeans that hugged her curves and a simple tank top. Her blonde hair was in a messy bun, and my eyes moved to her lips, the same lips I had kissed not long ago. Soft, warm, perfect. I shook my head, snapping myself out of it. Those weren't my thoughts. They belonged to the beast. I had only come here for one thing. Four. I stood frozen in front of her door, her chest rising and falling as she scanned the area, searching for something or someone. Then she looked in my direction. I couldn't do anything but stare into those sad blue eyes. It didn't affect me, though. I knew the real pain was yet to come. She would be hurting far more when I would finally reject her. Her sad gaze shifted to anger as she suddenly marched toward me, but I stood still, not moving a muscle. "Your fault," the beast growled. Only then did it hit me. Those furious eyes. She was coming over to reject me. Note, liking where this was headed, I quickly turned and walked away, blending into the crowd of whispering female students, who had now noticed my presence. A smile appeared on my lips, so I thought she could reject me. Perhaps she was more amusing than I had given her credit for. "Somebody please kill me," I groaned, burying my head in my pillow. Classes hadn't even officially started yet, and I was already exhausted. How was I even supposed to focus after everything that happened last week? Manny had said finding your mate would be magical, like something out of a fairy tale. Your mate was supposed to be your soulmate, but mine was a mate from the lowest pit of hell. He was disgusting scum, cold-hearted. First, he kissed me, then told me to stay away, and then he followed me back to my dorm. None of it made any sense. Each time I closed my eyes, all I could see were flashes of Alexander's lips on mine, and I hated it. As if things couldn't get any worse, all the girls could talk about was how he had been sleeping with Sophia, and that the two would be getting back together. I didn't mind, couldn't give two shits actually. But Luna was heartbroken. I hated him with every bone in my body, and when I saw him in the hall, I could see it in his eyes. He felt the same. Being the good person I was, I wanted to reject him right then and there to make it easier for the both of us. But before I could even get the words out, he had vanished. Alexander was going to reject me at some point. That was a well-known fact. I only wanted to do it before he had the chance. I heard 3 knocks on my door before it opened. "Come on, grab your bag, and let's go." I recognized Olivia's voice. "You don't want to smudge your pillow with any makeup." I lifted my head to glare at her. "I'm not wearing any." "Oh," she frowned. "Drool then. Come on, let's go." With a groan, I pushed myself out of bed. I grabbed my bag and then followed behind her. What's the point in sharing a dorm when it's mostly just the two of us? Olivia scoffed as we walked. She was referring to Sophia and Isabella, our roommates, who were rarely around. I shrugged. I don't mind it. Over the week, it had become clear to me that I wouldn't bond with the 2 Lycan girls anyway, not like I did with Olivia. She was nice, funny, easygoing, and it felt like we had been friends for ages. Our connection felt natural. Maybe we'll bump into my mate, and I can finally introduce you to him. Olivia's eyes lit up. I forced a smile. Yes, maybe. Olivia had found her mate at the Starlight Festival and hadn't stopped talking about him ever since. This whole week I had to hear about how tall, handsome, and kind he was. Yet she refused to back up these claims by showing me a picture. She said he was someone I'd have to meet in person. I was happy for her, really. She deserved the world and so much more, but thinking about how things had turned out so differently for her made me feel a bit bitter. My experience had been so humiliating. I hadn't even told her about finding mine. Olivia bumped my shoulder. "Don't feel bad about not finding your mate yet. Maybe he isn't at this school." "Yeah," I murmured, glancing away. "Maybe." A while later, we had reached the crowded academic hall. Olivia pulled me into a tight hug. "I have to go that way," she pointed to a different wing of the building. "But have a good first day, and if we're fighting someone, text me." I cracked a laugh, watching her leave. "I will. Unfortunately, we didn't have any classes together today. I knew I couldn't rely on her for 4 years, and had to do things on my own, but it wouldn't be too far stretched to say I was already missing her." As I walked down the hall, I looked for my classroom. When I finally found it, I took a deep breath, forcing myself to push all thoughts of Alexander out of my mind. What's done was done, and now it was time for me to focus. My first class of the day was the basics of healing. I stepped inside the classroom, already seeing Margaret, our RD, standing at the front. She shot me a warm smile, which I returned. Scanning the room, I searched for an empty seat, but then I heard it. That familiar, annoying laugh. I glanced over to where the sound was coming from and saw Sophia sitting on a table surrounded by her minions, including Isabella. They were laughing and whispering, but their eyes were on me. Whether they were laughing at me or with me, I didn't know. And honestly, I didn't care. All I knew was that I needed to find a seat as far away from them as possible. So I did. I didn't want to get into it with Sophia, not when I already had enough trouble with Alexander. One noble lichen was more than enough. "Good morning, everyone," Margaret greeted as soon as I sat down. "Before we start, I want to do a quick introduction round. Name, age, where you're from." Everyone groaned, but Margaret continued, clearly not taking no for an answer. Luckily, I was first, but as everyone was forced to introduce themselves, my mind drifted elsewhere. "Today we'll be doing a simple healing exercise. Don't worry, this is just to see where everyone is at, so no pressure." She explained the task in detail, but my mind was drifting again. "Each of you will have a tank with 30 small fish," Margaret spoke. "The goal is to strengthen at least one of the weakened fish using your healing abilities. Good luck." I missed half of her instructions, but I didn't care. The fish exercise was a basic I had learned from a young age. It was a standard among the healers of the Scarlet Pack, and we were all trained under the strongest pack's healer, an old respected woman who had also tutored my mom. I looked at the tank which was placed in front of me, swirling my finger. I healed one fish as I wanted to keep a low profile. I didn't want to stand out or get labeled as the nerd or the show off in class. It used to be like that back home, and I didn't want a repeat of that. When I heard people talking and clapping in admiration, I turned my head toward Sophia's table. 15 fish. Margaret nodded her head, fixing the glasses on her nose. "Good job, Sophia. Since you've already taken this class last year, I'm sure you can lead the other girls." Sophia smirked, brushing her red locks behind her ear. She really thought she was something. I hated her with a passion, but it wasn't because of her. It was because of him. "She can't lead us. We've done this many times before." Luna crawled inside my mind. "Show her." I clenched my fists, staring down at the fish in my tank as anger took over my body. First she stole our mate, and now she's stealing our spotlight. She is not the best healer in this class. It was hard not to focus on Luna's voice as she pushed me closer to the edge. There was no reason for Alexander to dislike me the way he did, not while he surrounded himself with that. It wasn't fair. "End that bitch, Emily." No. Before I could stop it, Luna had won. The water in the tank splashed wildly, all 30 fish swimming around. Gasps followed the room as everyone stood up to gather around my tank. My cheeks felt hot. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. I hated attention, and because of that jealous wolf, I now had a room full of it. "Amazing," Margaret said, making me look up to meet her eyes. "This is a junior. Level skill. We don't expect freshmen to heal more than 10. Unsure of how to answer, I managed to give her an appreciative smile. From the corner of my eye, I caught Sophia's eyes shooting daggers in my direction. If it wasn't for Margaret urging everyone to take a seat again, I had no idea what she might have done to me. "Emily," the woman spoke as everyone sat back down, "please come visit me after class. There's something I'd like to discuss with you." The rest of the class was mostly theory, and after an hour the bell rang. Students began to gather their things, but I waited, just as Margaret had told me to. Sophia, who had been glaring at me for well over an hour, now stood at my table with her minions. Knowing I wouldn't be able to stop whatever she had planned for me, I looked up to meet her gaze. "Yes?" I asked. Sophia chuckled, rolling her eyes. "I wasn't even talking to her," she said to the other girls. "But I guess some people just need to be the center of attention, don't they?" I knew better than to respond. Speaking back would only invite trouble, so I diverted my gaze, keeping my mouth shut, and waited patiently until she left the classroom. Once everyone was gone, I made my way over to Margaret's desk. "Sit," she said warmly, gesturing to the chair, and I sat down. Margaret studied me for a moment, tucking her gray hair behind her ear. Her gaze was observing and sharp, as if she was trying to read me. "Your mom was Sarah Carter from the Scarlet Pack, correct?" she asked, after a moment of silence. I nodded, unsure where this was going. "She was one of my best students," Margaret acknowledged. "I also knew your dad, Michael. He was such a strong fighter. They were always together, always eager to learn." "Your dad, William, too, of course, or uncle." Dad is all right, I corrected her, a smile tugging at my lips. Back home, people rarely spoke about my parents. They treated them like literal ghosts. It was nice to hear about them for once. She was so good, Margaret continued, and I'm going to give you the same opportunity I gave to her. I blinked, confused. What do you mean? Have you heard of the elite team? I furrowed my brow, the name familiar. Yes, my cousin. I hesitated, correcting myself. My brother, Ryan, is on that team. Margaret nodded. Indeed he is, and so were your parents. The elite team was a special group within the academy, made up of the best students from all years. They were the face of the school, the protectors of the school, and followed a separate program. I want you to take trial classes with the elite team, Margaret said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. My heart skipped a beat. Why? I stuttered. Because... She sighed. A freshman who can heal 30 fish in one go has a bright future ahead of her. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I knew I had a talent, but no one ever told me I had a bright future. Not the teachers back home, not even the healer. No one. I was used to being told what I needed to work on, or what I wasn't doing good enough. Those were the things that made me push myself harder. I wasn't used to compliments, and hearing that I was good enough for something meant more to me than she could have ever imagined. The elite team is not something out of the ordinary for a Scarlet, Margaret added, noticing my lack of reaction. I hesitated, suddenly feeling the pressure that came with it. Protector of the school, what I lacked in many other things, I made up for in healing. But I wasn't some extraordinary student. I don't know. Margaret's expression softened. You're strong, Emily, too strong. You need to challenge yourself before you get bored. I breathed. This was only the first class, and I only need a few seconds to see whether someone is good enough for the elite team. Margaret finished. Her eyes were full of determination. She trusted me, believed in me, and I didn't want to let her down. Maybe there really was something, who knew? Okay, I said. I'll do it. Good. Margaret smiled, relieved. I'll send you an email with the details. As I got up to leave, it suddenly occurred to me that something was bothering me, something only she could help with. By the way, I said, when we first met, you called me Abigail. The smile faded from Margaret's face. Did I? She cleared her throat. Yes, you did, I reminded her. I saw a picture of Mom, with that girl Abigail in the hall. They were close friends, Margaret replied quickly. Close friends or best friends, I wondered. Best friends. I meant to call you Sarah. I got it all mixed up. My bad. I see, I chuckled. Finally making sense of the situation. Do you maybe have her number or anything, so I can get in contact with her and... No, she passed away many years ago. She passed away. I raised a... Was she depressed? Margaret didn't answer, and grabbed a pen and a piece of paper from her desk. I'll write you a note. You should head to your next class. Other students were already beginning to fill the room for the next period. Margaret scribbled something onto a piece of paper and handed it to me. Here you go. The same woman who had been so warm just seconds ago was now cold and distant. By her tone, I could tell the conversation was over, but there were so many questions I still wanted to ask. About Abigail and the bond she shared with Mom. Maybe it wasn't important, but there was something about the way they hugged in that picture that pulled me in. I felt drawn to Abigail, and I wanted to know more about her. I took the note, deciding to let it drop before heading to my next class. After 2 more classes, history and emotional healing, it was time for my lunch break. With my tray in my hand, I looked across the crowded cafeteria. It was an unorganized mess. Everywhere I looked, students were talking, laughing, eating, kissing. I felt out of place, as usual. I spotted Ethan, sitting with a group of his friends at a table near the center. Alexander wasn't there. Ethan caught my eye and waved at me to come over. I quickly turned my head, pretending I hadn't seen him. I knew he meant well, but I had no business sitting at a table full of lichens. We might go to school together, have classes together, but we were not the same. They disliked us, and we disliked them. It had always been like that. I settled for a table all the way in the corner, hoping nobody would bother me. Then my thoughts drifted back to the elite team. How was I going to be part of a team when I could barely count to 10 in public? I was socially awkward, not good at making friends, and now Margaret expected me to be part of a team. Was I really ready for something like that? I pulled out my phone, hesitating a moment before dialing Dad, thinking telling him the good news would cheer me up. Maybe he would be proud of me for once, or at least acknowledge what I had accomplished on my first day. As always, the call went straight to voicemail, but I decided not to let it get to me. He was the alpha. Perhaps he was just busy. I left him a voicemail instead. "Hey Dad, it's me, Emily. I haven't heard from you in a while, but I just wanted to tell you that I'm still alive. I miss you, and I love you. Bye." The voicemail ended with the love I had for him was one-sided. That man had never been warm, affectionate, or caring for a single day in his life. But I still loved him. He had taken me in, took care of me when he didn't have to. Regardless of everything, I was still grateful. I sighed, playing around with the food on my tray. Dad didn't care. My mate didn't care. My brother didn't care. None of those students cared. Final conclusion. My life sucked, and so did Starlight Academy. The only one keeping me sane was Olivia, who was not here at the moment. Suddenly, a loud tray slammed onto the table, making me flinch. My eyes widened as I looked straight ahead, coming face to face with someone familiar. "Since you were ignoring me, I figured I'd invite myself over." It was Ethan. "I wasn't ignoring you, I was just..." I stopped explaining myself to Ethan as he raised a brow. He wasn't stupid. Of course he knew I was ignoring him. "Why are you hiding over here?" he asked, eating a piece of vegetable from his plate. I couldn't help but chuckle. "I'm not hiding. When you sit at a table by yourself in a corner, behind a giant plant," he said, pointing to the ridiculously large pot, "you're definitely hiding." I laughed, staring into his curious brown eyes. There was something about Ethan that made him easy to talk to. He wasn't scary, overconfident, or judgmental like the other lichens. He was just normal. "So, how is your first day of school going?" Ethan asked, popping another vegetable into his mouth. "Already thinking about running for the gates?" "If only they would open them." I cracked a smile. Ethan grinned. "Well, from what I'm hearing, you're not doing too bad first day, and you're already scheduled for a trial day with the elite team." I looked at him, surprised he knew that. "Are you not eating?" he asked, changing the subject as he eyed my untouched tray. "How do you know about the elite team?" I questioned. Ethan leaned back in his chair with a chuckle. "When you're part of the student council, word travels fast. Also, the elite team isn't nothing." He leaned over and grabbed my fork from my plate before stabbing it into a piece of pasta. "Hey!" I protested as he brought it toward me. Either way, my mouth opened instantly, and I let him feed me. Ethan watched me as I chewed while I was still trying to process everyone being in my business. So everyone in this school talked about everyone, which was an even better reason as to why I should be careful around Alexander. Ethan gave me another bite, and I accepted without thinking too much about it. "I'm also on the team," Ethan suddenly shared, grinning. "So we'll be seeing each other a lot." A wave of relief washed over me. The idea of having Ethan around already made everything less scary. "What are the people on the team like?" "Most of them are all right," Ethan spoke with a full mouth. "It's me, Alexander. The lichen prince is on the elite team." I felt an uncomfortable chill spread through my body. Ethan gave me a strange look. "Of course he is. He's one of the best." I bit my lip, trying to hide the fact that internally I was freaking out. Of course Alexander was on the team. Why wouldn't he be? All the girls could talk about was him being the school's golden boy, and the golden boy belonged in such a team. Ethan shook his head, huffing as he noticed my reaction. "If you're afraid he's going to bump into you again, Don't be. Alexander likes to provoke people, but you shouldn't take it seriously. It's just his way. That's right. That's how it all started. He bumped into me on my first day, called me Four Eyes. On the spot, I forced a smile. Oh, I'm not worried about him. Ethan looked at me for a second longer. By the look on his face, I could just tell that his best friend hadn't told him about the mate bond we shared. He was completely oblivious. Alexander didn't tell him because he was embarrassed of me, just like I didn't tell Olivia because I was embarrassed of him. You know, Ethan said, the high teachers only need about 10 seconds to determine whether someone is worthy or not. That means you must be a really good healer. That was the same thing Margaret had told me when she saw the doubt on my face. I hope so, I said softly. If you're on the team, you must know my brother Ryan, I wondered. Ethan stopped eating. This time a vegetable dropping out of his mouth, right back onto the tray. I didn't know the two of you were related, he commented. No way you're from the same pack as that thing. A small laugh escaped from between my lips. That's what I thought about your sister and your lichen prince. Ethan shrugged, chuckling. Fair point. Even though one might have found Ethan's words offensive, I didn't. Surprisingly, it didn't bother me, because it came from him. I hope my sister's not giving you a hard time in that dorm. She can be too much at times. Meh? I rolled back my shoulders, dismissing the treatment she had given me this morning. She's barely even around, because she stayed with Alexander. Before either of us could say anything else, someone from across the cafeteria called out to Ethan. I'll see you later. Ethan got up and walked around the table. Then he ruffled his hand through my hair. Stop it, I laughed, smacking it away. I'll see you around. Beautiful, Ethan winked, then walked off, joining his friends as they headed out of the cafeteria. Beautiful. That was something else than Four Eyes. His presence was nice, but now that he had left, I could only think about Alexander. Hearing he was also on the elite team had only drained my spirits. Just the thought of being in the same room made me sick. Why did it have to be him? Of all the people in this academy, why did the moon goddess choose him as my mate? At first I was terrified of joining the team for other reasons, but now it was all about Alexander. I had yet to reject him, and I just knew he was going to make my life a living hell. I really had to do something about that bond before even thinking about putting foot inside of that elite team. The rest of the classes passed in a blur, and after studying for a while longer, I was back at the dorms. Hey, Olivia called out, lying on the couch. She was on her phone, texting with a wide smile, possibly her mate. She gave me a look, then shifted her eyes to Sophia's closed room door, and I got the message. Unfortunately, Sophia and Isabella were around for once. Hey, I joined her. How was your day? All right, how was yours? I dropped my bag on the table, then released a groan. Long, very long. Olivia chuckled, sitting up. You look like you've been through a battlefield. I feel like I have. I rolled my eyes. She had no idea. Don't tell me you're already thinking about dropping out. Dropping out. I sighed, rolling onto my back. Never. It's just been a long day. Olivia leaned over with raised brows. You've got that look on your face. Something's on your mind. I hesitated, telling her the truth about everything. All of it, the festival, Alexander, our bond, the kiss, the mess on the elite team. How could I even begin to explain any of it? Eerily, it's nothing. I could tell Olivia wasn't buying it, but she didn't push further. Well, if you ever need someone to vent, I'm here. Thanks. It wasn't that I didn't trust her. I did, but something about this whole situation made me want to keep it to myself. It was not some romantic fairy tale compared to hers. My story was embarrassing. So, Olivia spoke. I heard some news. What news? I sat back up. She raised an eyebrow, grinning. You know, about the elite team. Ethan really wasn't kidding. Apparently everyone did talk about everyone. How did you hear about that? She laughed, tossing her phone onto the table. Are you kidding me? It's all anyone's talking about. First day of school, and you're already in for a trial with the elite team. That's huge, Emily. It's only been hours, I exhaled. Anyway, let's not get our hopes up. I have a habit of screwing this up. You're not going to screw up, Olivia stated firmly. A few of the girls told me about what you did with those fish today. You're talented. You'll fit right in. The way she said it made it sound so easy. If only it was just the elite team I had to worry about. My phone buzzed, pulling me from my thoughts. I glanced down and saw an email notification. As I opened it, a pit in my stomach appeared. Elite team trial, 2 days, from now 2 days. My trial was in 2 days. No, I painted a schedule in my head. I had 2 days to reject Alexander. Sophia was in her room, which meant I had to do it now. I had no choice. Olivia laughed. What's up? You look like you've seen a ghost. It's nothing. I need to head out for a bit. I rushed off the couch. Now, Olivia asked, where are you going? I tried to think of an excuse, but I didn't want to lie to her again. I have to talk to someone, won't be long. She nodded, looking a little curious, but didn't question me further. All right, don't be out too late. We've got curfew. I know, I'll be quick. I walked from the Lunar Hall through the dark campus, all the way to the combat. Strategy and leadership hall where I knew Alexander would be. How did I know? Alexander was a big name around campus, and within a few days, I had already overheard where and in which room he stayed at. I pulled my hood low over my face, glancing around the nearly empty hall to make sure no one was watching. Then I made my way up the stairs and saw it. The room at the end of the hall with the big door, with his name on it just like the girls had described. The door was large, dark, and intimidating, just like him. The closer I got, the more I reconsidered this silly action. But I had no choice. It wasn't like I wanted to be here, but I had to be here. I had to reject him. It was as simple as that. I stood in front of his door, taking a deep breath. What if he didn't want to talk to me? What if he would slam the door in my face? It was too late to turn back now. Before I could rethink my decision for a second time, I balled my fist and knocked on the door. Once, twice. It felt like an eternity. Then the door swung open, and I quickly hid my guilty fist behind my back. Alexander stood there, shirtless, his skin damp and slightly glowing, like he had just stepped out of the shower. His scent hit me instantly. Clean, fresh, intoxicating. It made my head spin. I realized my eyes had wandered somewhere they shouldn't have, so I forced them up to meet his. He stared at me with a cold yet calm gaze, like he had been expecting me for a while. His eyes narrowed. 4 eyes? What do you want? His voice was full of irritation. I found myself struggling to maintain my focus. It was hard to do so when, with his bare chest and the hard lines of his abs right in front of me, on display. I need to talk to you, I said, forcing myself to stand my ground. Alexander's dark eyes flicked over me, a mix of annoyance and something deeper flashing in them. He stepped aside, gesturing for me to enter without a word. My heart raced as I crossed the threshold, the door clicking shut behind me like a final seal on my fate. The room was luxurious, fitting for a prince. Dark woods, plush fabrics, and an air of untouchable power. But it felt cold, just like him. I turned to face him, my resolve wavering under his intense stare. Talk, he commanded, crossing his arms over his chest, muscles flexing in a way that made my stomach flip despite myself. I swallowed hard, the words I'd rehearsed on the way here sticking in my throat. We both know what this is. The bond, it is. It is not what either of us wants, so let's end it. I, Emily Carter, reject you, Alexander, as my mate. The silence that followed was deafening. I expected relief, or maybe anger from him, but instead, his expression softened, a vulnerability cracking through his icy facade. He took a step closer, and I backed up until I hit the wall, trapped once more. You think it is that easy? He murmured, his voice low and rough. You think I haven't tried to fight this every damn day? My breath caught. You called me a pathetic puppy. You hate me. He winced, his hand reaching out to brush a strand of hair from my face. his touch surprisingly gentle. I was scared, Emily, scared of what this means, of losing control, of caring. His eyes met mine, raw with emotion. I've spent years building walls because of my past, the mistakes I've made, but you tear them down without even trying. Tears welled in my eyes, the vulnerability in his voice pulling at my heart. I'd always felt like an outsider, unworthy, especially after losing my parents. But here he was, the powerful prince, admitting his fears. It stirred something protective in me, a fierce need to shield him from his own demons, even as I fought my own dignity urging me to walk away. "I don't want to be your weakness," I whispered. But my hands betrayed me, resting on his chest. "You are not," he said, his forehead pressing against mine. "You are my strength. The moon goddess chose you for a reason. And damn it, Emily, I can't fight it anymore." His lips captured mine in a kiss that was nothing like the desperate one in the woods. This was tender, full of promise, igniting a fire that warmed the deepest parts of me. I melted into him, the bond singing in my veins, erasing the pain of rejection. When we pulled apart, gasping, he cupped my face. "I accept you, Emily Carter, as my mate forever." The days that followed were a whirlwind. At the elite team trial, Alexander stood by my side, his presence a silent vow of support. I excelled, my healing abilities shining brighter with his encouragement. Sophia, seeing the unbreakable bond, stepped back gracefully, finding her own path. Olivia squealed when I finally confessed everything, hugging me tight. I knew there was something. "He is perfect for you, strong enough to protect, but you make him soft." Even Dad called back, his gruff voice softening with pride. "Your mother would be proud, kid." As we graduated years later, Alexander and I stood hand in hand, ready to rule Luporia together. Our love wasn't easy. It was forged in fire, balancing my vulnerability with his control, my dignity with his protection. But it was ours, a perfect harmony that healed old wounds and promised a future filled with unbreakable bonds. And in quiet moments when he held me close, whispering promises against my skin, I knew I'd found my home, not in a pack or a throne, but in his arms. Fey document Fey.